Chapter 16, back to the daily routine, and Jesus explains his time back in Jerusalem. Back in town, word had already spread about Jesus staying behind in Jerusalem. When we arrived at the gate of the city, more people than usual were there talking with each other. They spoke greetings to Mary and Joseph, so they had been praying for Jesus' safety while he was away from them. We made our way through the crowd to get home. Mary's other children were staying with Deborah at our house. She had been with them growing up, so they knew her. Mary and Joseph were the parents of 5 other children besides Jesus. After Jesus came James, Leah, Joseph, Simon, and Jude. So Deborah had her hands full while we were gone. But they were all well-behaved children and were good for Deborah. Not long after our trip to Jerusalem, we were all back to an everyday routine. Papa, Andrew, and I were back in the boat every day, except the Sabbath, of course. Jesus joined us a few days after he returned, and that gave us an opportunity to talk to him about when he stayed behind in Jerusalem. Jesus said God spoke to him and told him to go back to the temple on the morning we were to leave. After we went to the temple to worship that morning, we went back to our inn to gather our things for the trip. Once we were ready to leave the city, the instruction from God was only that the only thing on his mind as he went back to the synagogue. At first, he only saw 2 priests, but then as morning turned to afternoon, more teachers arrived. Jesus said he talked for hours and night came before he realized it. One of the teachers walked with him back to the inn where he was staying with Mary and Joseph, but they were gone. Jesus said he wasn't concerned because God told him to go with the teacher back to his home to spend the night. Then Jesus and the teacher went back to the temple early the next morning and again sat and talked all day about God and the scriptures. Once again, Jesus spent the night with the teacher in his home and spent the next day at the temple again. That's when Mary, Joseph, and I rushed into the temple and found him. Jesus said he did not mean to worry his mother and father, but he was focusing on his mission that his heavenly Father had given him. The time he spent at the temple had been planned for a while. He said God had been dealing with him on what to say and how to answer the questions the teachers would ask him. Many nights and mornings spent by his window praying gave Jesus time alone with his heavenly Father. Jesus had friends his own age, of course, but he did not behave the way some of them did. There were boys who would be disrespectful to their parents, while Jesus was always courteous to Mary and Joseph. When they would ask him to do a chore, no matter what it was, he would do it without complaining. He enjoyed watching out for his brothers and sisters too. They loved to go pick grapes and figs. He even took the older ones fishing along the shore in the summer. The summer was surely upon us. Everyone seemed to spend most of it on top of the summer house. We could see Jesus' house from ours while we were on our roof. They sure had a big family. One evening, while Mama and Papa were joining us for supper up on the roof, Deborah announced we were going to have another child of our own. We were all so happy, and we danced and sang the rest of the evening. Deborah and Mara had become closer, and Deborah would sometimes go to her house to help her with her sewing. Mara was teaching Deborah how to become a better seamstress. They would create new clothing for themselves and others, but they especially liked making clothes for little children. The clothing they made was very colorful and bright for the children. Deborah said she was working on something special for the new baby. One day, Deborah said she and Mara were working on a special garment for Jesus' birthday. His 13th birthday was coming up, and it didn't look as if he would have a bar mitzvah like some other boys had, so they wanted to do something special for him. Mara had purchased some purple fabric at the market the last time we were in Jerusalem for Passover. This was the fabric out of which they would make the garment for Jesus. They were hoping he would wear it even when he read from the scriptures on his birthday. He was planning on doing this on his birthday, even though he wasn't going to have a big party afterwards.